My name is Nilson Mujarro. I represent the Energy R&D Funds of Mexico in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have old friends and new friends here. And many of you have been with us for the whole journey through the Solution Center, and others are new, and we're really keen to deepen our work with those of you that are new. I'd like to give the folks on the phone the opportunity to introduce themselves. Hopefully this works. Anybody on the phone, maybe we'll start with Latin America. Is there anybody with us from Latin America on the phone? Okay. Sure. You have a list there?
Hi, just looking from the list of remote participants. Christina Becker-Burke, are you on the line?
Yes, hi. From Meister Consulting Group, and I lead our firm's international energy practice, and I'm a clean energy policy and finance expert.
Great, thanks, Christina. Christine Lins from REN 21, you're on the line.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, Vicky. Hello. Christine Lins, Executive Secretary of REN 21.
Thanks, Christine. Jen DeCicero from IRENA. Jen, are you able to hear us and introduce yourself? Okay. And next, Kuda, we have from Zimbabwe, who is the new executive director of the South African Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. Kuda, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Vicky. My name is Kuda Ndikula. I'm the executive director of the SADC Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. That's for Southern Africa and all of Southern African countries. And we're based in Windhoek, Namibia. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And we have Jess McDonald on the line from the U.S. Department of Energy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. There's an echo, sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jess McDonald. As Vicky, I'm with the U.S. Department of Energy. I'm U.S. representative for the Clean Energy Solution Center, and I'm really looking to a really fruitful discussion this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us, and I'll be on the line here.
Super. And great, Jen, just one more time in case. We have Jennifer DeCicero who's the Senior Program Manager from the International Renewable Energy Agency. She's dialed in, but may be having some audio difficulties. Oh, okay, great. And I'm Vicki Healy, Project Leader for the Clean Energy Solutions Center from NREL.
Great. And Vicki is the true hero and superstar. She makes this whole operation hum. I guess I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ron Benioff. I manage multilateral programs and serve as overall director of our work on the Clean Energy Ministerial at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the U.S. So thank you again all for being here. What we're going to do today, we're going to say a few words high level about the Solution Center and the role of the advisory committee. We'll have a few comments as well from some of the leaders of the Solution Center work. Turn it to Christian to say a few words about the SEM Secretariat transition, and then we'll get into the meat of our gathering here, broken into three topics: the Ask an Expert work, and for each of these topics, we'll pause and take time for your feedback, which is why we're here. And so, whoops, we'll try to make let's see, that was a good example. I'm going too long, I guess. We'll try to make our remarks brief so we can get into the meat. And we'll cover Ask an Expert, we'll cover our capacity building work and our partnerships, and then a little bit of time on our strategy going forward, our structure, and our approach to sustainability going forward, and then wrap up by 3. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay. Let's So just as a reminder, so the Solution Center was launched in 2011. The co-leads for the Solution Center are the governments of the US and Australia, but we're also very pleased to have strong support from PEAR and the government of Sweden, which has been essential to our work, and many other governments here that have been providing support, Canada, Mexico, others, the European Commission on an in-kind basis, and experts, and many institutions that we've partnered with. We partner with development agencies around the world, we partner with regional institutions, and we partner with global organizations, IPEC, IRENA, SC for All, the World Energy Council, Leonardo Energy, and many of the others that are here, and of course with other SEM initiatives like CLASP. The Solution Center is unique as a SEM initiative, I guess, or is in a family of unique initiatives. There's a few others like this. That its focus is providing advisory support, tools, and services to developing countries. And we do this, a little bit slow. We do this by our dynamic services, which is really the heart of the Solution Center, especially our Ask an Expert service, and we're really honored to have a number of experts who are here, some of the world-class authorities on clean energy policy, and we'll have them share a few examples as we go through. We also were a first-stop shop of resources for busy policymakers, so we've curated the most relevant resources on efficiency, renewables, clean transport, and finance, which is a new addition to the Solution Center that are available. We share the best practices, the data, and we also foster dialogue on emerging issues. Our primary audience are governments. It can be national, subnational, they can be regulators, they can be policy officials, finance experts, they can be in ministries of transport, ministries of energy, ministries of environment, but also the information and activities that we undertake are of value to many other organizations, to private sector, to research organizations, to community groups, as well as international organizations. So just a few words about what have we done over the years. I think what we're most proud about is the extent of assistance that's been provided to countries with very specific and concrete policies. So again, the hallmark of the Solution Center is we have these team of experts, several of which are here today with us, and some on the phone, who are the world-class experts on feed-in tariffs, or on building codes, or on net metering, or on appliance efficiency, who are available on call to respond to requests that come in from governments, national and subnational, to help review of regulation or policy, advise on the design of that activity, provide examples of what's been done in other countries. And this service has been delivered now for over 350 requests from more than 80 countries around the world. And I think can honestly say in my career, it's been one of the most effective examples of governments delivering support to each other and collaborating in a manner that really has impact. Because as you know, when you're involved in a policy process, if you need some assistance, you often don't have time to go through a long procurement. You need to be able to pick up the phone and have somebody who can do a quick review, but who's knowledgeable and who's neutral. That's the other thing that's important to recognize about these experts. These are experts who are under contract or work for international organizations, specifically in a role to provide neutral and objective advice to support the governments. And these experts sit around the world. They're multilingual, they have experience in different countries, and so when a request comes in, we look for the expert who has that language skill, has that experience in that country, and can deliver the responsive support. We've also, in 2015, had launched services on clean energy finance issues. We're starting to see an uptick, but I think there's a lot more room for growth there as well. Along with the expert assistance service, the Solution Center provides training. We do this primarily through web seminars, and we've had over 200 web seminars, multiple time zones and regions, and usually have a couple a month. Many of you have participated and have presented during these web seminars. And we're really keen to continue that, to get your advice on what kinds of web seminars are most valuable. We also go to events that others organize. We don't have resources, nor do we want to convene new workshops. I think there's plenty of workshops already happening. But we like to find out about organizations, CARICOM, APEC, ECRI, others that are convening, IPEC and others that are convening workshops, SE for All, where we can send experts who can provide training and meet individuals. We also do this at the national level in Mexico. Happy to do, I think we've had 1 or 2 of these cases in Indonesia. Happy to do more of this in South Africa and elsewhere as well, where we can, if there's national level workshops, meetings of policymakers, or we can send experts to provide training and also on-site advisory support. As I noted, we have strong relationships also with development agencies and regional organizations. That's essential so that the advisory support is linked into ongoing development cooperation to have a sustained impact and to really ensure that the advice leads to long-term change. And as I noted earlier, we have this robust library of resources. These are over 5,000 or 5,500 resources. They don't sit on our website. Our website is a link to resources that sit elsewhere with short summaries and categorization of the resources. So the advisory boards, several years ago, we convened an advisory board, and we appreciate all of those of you who have been on the board and those who are new to this meeting, to provide input on our activities. And the advisory board consists of the organizations that sponsor the Solution Center, the SEM governments, both who provide experts and who provide assistance, and our partners, as well as selected Ask an Expert members who are the ones in the field who can really tell us what's happening, how we can improve our services and our outreach. The board has 3 main functions. First and foremost, to provide guidance, strategic level guidance on are we conducting the right activities to have the biggest impact on design of policies and finance measures around the world, and how can we strengthen those services to keep up with. It's a very evolving market. There's new policy needs. There's greater needs perhaps going forward at the subnational level, or needs for integrated action at national and subnational. And so it's really critical for us to hear from you. What are the key policy issues that we should be paying attention to? What are the issues that countries are struggling with? How can we improve the scope of the support we provide going forward? Along with that, to help with outreach. You know, our challenge, we're trying to get the attention of busy policymakers at all levels of government. Many of you have very strong relationships with this community, and we've already worked very closely with you on outreach to build awareness and demand, because we want to have high quality requests. You know, we've been very fortunate to have over 100 requests a year that we've been delivering support on, and we want to continue that volume, but also make sure we're responding to the most important requests from countries, and then to help advise us on how we can continue and deepen our partnerships with many of the organizations that are here and other organizations, so that we provide that sort of unique added value to the sustained programs that an IRENA or an SE for All or an IPEC or the development agencies provide. Any questions about the role of the advisory board? Okay. So what I wanted to do here, before we get into the details of the progress update, is give Nicole a chance to just reflect a little bit, and then I'll ask Per to do the same from the perspective of Sweden on, as key sponsors, but also governments that have been very actively engaged. What do you see as the value of the Solution Center? And then we'll move on to talking a little bit about the Secretariat transition and getting into the more depth on our activities. Nicole?
Thanks, Ron. So as I mentioned earlier, Australia's been a supporter of the CESC since its inception in 2011. And as Ron's been going through, we really think that there's a huge wealth of valuable resources that can be used by governments through the CESC for clean energy, energy access, energy security, climate change issues, as well as this policy implementation assistance and more on the clean energy financing advice. And I may also be biased as well, but was really pleased to see that the 2015 review of the SEM established that the CESC is one of the more valuable SEM initiatives. So there's the continuing demand for the Solution Centre services demonstrates this really is still a strong need for the services that we provide, and this mechanism that can be used to build capacity and share these best practices between government policymakers to encourage a continued and an accelerated uptake of clean energy. So it's for these reasons that Australia contributed the additional funding, which I mentioned earlier. And a really important factor in this was that every dollar that we put through CESC, we think we can get more value out of than if we tried to spend that money ourselves on doing the equivalent kind of work. So Australia's additional funding that we're providing to the centre will allow a greater focus on activities in the Asia-Pacific region, although not exclusive of other regions, of course. An increase in the number and length of the Ask an Expert requests, providing up to 120 hours of free advice from international experts to various policymakers and government agencies per issue. And so we're excited to know that this assistance can also now be provided in a number of different languages. The development of initiatives on important emerging issues such as energy resiliency, including in off-grid areas, the clean energy finance work and the energy water nexus, assisting developing countries in implementing their nationally determined contributions, the face-to-face or virtual training workshops, and development of policy implementation strategies, and of course the increase in partnerships with other international organisations and groups, and with clean energy financing institutions as well, and also finally the incorporation of the finance portal into the CESC website, which is making it a bit more user-friendly and enabling people to access the information across those various issues. So we're really pleased to see the outreach activities that have been undertaken, including in Australia last year as part of the 51st APEC Energy Working Group. So NREL's presentation at the working group was really well received and resulted in a decision to create better linkages between APEC's knowledge sharing platform and the CESC, and to explore some more opportunities for collaboration between the two. There were also some really valuable discussions during that trip on potential linkages with some of Australia's research organisations working in this space, and we're hoping that these can be built upon in the future to provide some even stronger links. So we think that particularly at the moment with the fast-changing nature of global energy policies and scenarios, it's really important that we're able to all share these experiences between different countries, and the ability for now subnational governments as well as national governments to access the Solutions Centre provides an even broader scope of that advice and support that we can provide at a level which often is more needed, but there's insufficient technical or subject matter expertise. So we're really keen to keep encouraging these national and subnational governments and other stakeholders to utilise the services that are provided under the CESC, and either for their own capacity building or when they're assisting other countries in their work. And then I guess finally, I'd just like to encourage that each country here that is represented to consider the support that you're able to provide to the CESC in whatever way possible, which we'll be covering a bit later on. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you for all the support over the years. And now to a great colleague, Per, who will provide us perspective from Sweden.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. And as I mentioned before, so Sweden joined the Solutions Centre in 2015 at COP21. And the reason for that was, well, the minister, he wanted it. He thought it was a very good initiative. But from our point of view, it also made a lot of sense. I mean, SEM is, to us, a very good way to work with other countries on deploying efficient policies, effective policies. But so far, I mean, most of the initiatives more or less focus on SEM countries, of course. But this initiative goes beyond the SEM family, so that's why I thought it's also important to work with countries beyond SEM, and also kind of like the model of actually, and then I thinking about the ask an expert as a method of working with countries, department, ministries around the world to actually from a bottom-up perspective, find what are the actual demands, interest for support for developing new policies. And as a small country, this is a challenge, of course, to engage in a global arena with a lot of countries which are eager to develop policies on renewables, energy efficiency, etc. So this was from the Swedish government was also a kind of smart way to actually reach out broader than just to a few countries on our experience. So we have contributed with between $400,000 and $500,000. We have also added we're in the process of adding Swedish experts as well to the network, and we of course see great potential in a solution center as a part in the and having a role in the overall architecture, but post Paris. So, and this is why I think this meeting and what we have to do this year is very important, of course, to make sure it gets that role as it has. Finally, maybe just a word on the collaboration with Enroll, which has been very, very good, very professional staff. So from the investment, or what do you call it, the contribution, it's very much worth every buck. And especially we get a lot of reports back, and we see that there's concrete results, and also looking to which we will see later today on the results. Seems there is an uptake, but of course there's still a great potential, more outreach, and working with more other international partners.
Thank you very much, Per, and we appreciate your support. Hugo, did you have a comment?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this event. But first, let me first of all thank our appreciation for Mr. Singleton, and congratulate him on his new role. I think myself and Mr. Singleton are probably the newest in this meeting. I joined about 2 weeks ago. Now, moving forward, I'd like to say that from SE4 perspective, I think many countries are now looking to invest and to develop their energy transition policies and standards. I think since 2012, the Clean Energy Solutions Center and Sustainable Energy for All have partners to deliver information, knowledge, and expert assistance to policymakers and practitioners in countries working actively to achieve their sustainable development goals, which is SDG 7. The valuable partnership creates new opportunities to provide valuable and direct assistance to governments delivering strategies and roadmaps to meet these goals. In a nutshell, I would like to emphasize that without sustainable energy development that lifts all people while protecting the planet is simply not possible. So we should certainly take this as an opportunity to really dig deep and really understand that this actually impacts development on the whole and individuals. From my side, I'm the senior knowledge specialist from SE4, more or less starting to develop the work plan for SE4. So I've been sent here to learn as much as I can, to interact with as many people as possible, to see how best to integrate many of our ideas, many of our policies, and to see how best to leverage the work of your august institution moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugo, and it's been a pleasure to work with SE for All. We've been working closely and supporting some of the SE for All action plans and investment prospectus, and I think that's been extremely useful collaboration. Any other comments before we turn it over to Christian to provide a perspective from the new SEM Secretariat at the IEA? Okay, Christian.
I think I'll continue the tradition of sitting down and saying a few things. So I'll say a little bit about the transition process that I've been asked to speak of, and then I'll have a few sort of initial comments, perhaps, as far as the rest of the meeting today is concerned. I will speak out a little bit more in depth tomorrow at the SEM meeting proper on the transition process. but I want to say a few words now. And the first one would probably be that this transition process is a gradual one. We are, Shishi and myself, hopefully with Rodolfo coming in, Rachel helping out. It's a gradual process, and in that gradual process also lies that there is a very significant heavy lift from the U.S. DOE, not least from Tracy to my right, but also others here and stateside helping out with the SEM Secretariat. And that is hugely significant, and we'd be in dire straits without them. So I want to recognize that sort of right at the outset. Basically, the way we think about the transition process of the SEM Secretariat, given this is a nascent, novel creature, is we'll proceed sort of in 3 stages. First stage is getting to Beijing, as it were, getting to the ministerial. Second stage will be Beijing proper, probably a 24/7 lift, if I understand Tracy's wartime experience right. But it's a significant stage. Obviously, it's important to have a very successful ministerial meeting for the SEM itself, but also for the work after the ministerial meeting. And the third stage would then be, the infinity and beyond type world after Beijing, where we hopefully get a little bit more of a firm, if not calm, then at least more stable trajectory going. So that's how we see the SEM Secretariat tradition as sort of at least at this stage, as sort of a 3-stage process. I will develop that a little bit more tomorrow, obviously. I'm happy to participate here in the side meetings today, and also the one, or most of the one, tomorrow morning on solar and wind. I'm very much here to listen and pick up your priorities, maybe also your concerns and challenges for the future. I will say just a few initial thoughts that come to mind, partly listening to your introduction, Ron, and also the initial conversation here, partly in reading the many papers for this week's meeting. I had a short flight from Copenhagen. Many of you had very long flights, so you probably had a good opportunity to really read them in depth. But I had an initial look at them in the past weeks, I must confess. And so when I look at the CESC and the Clean Energy Solution Center, I think the fact that this is very country specific and what we sort of in Paris parlance call more implementation oriented work, I think is very significant. If I were to put a few chatons on the roulette table, I think several of the SEM initiatives will probably move in that direction in the future, more implementation specific. I think Pier's point that this is actually one of those, not the only one, but one of the few SEM initiatives which target substantially countries outside the SEM family, I think is quite significant. And actually some of the introductory Sherpa calls I've had also point to that phenomenon of also reaching out outside the SEM family as a big priority for some countries. So so for that, I think it's a significant effort. Reading the papers in the past couple of weeks, those papers that you have read on your long flights, I'm struck sort of not on the CESC specifically, but as a general comment that there's a huge amount of work going on, huge amount of work. A lot of people engaged, a lot of outcomes. Similarly, I see sort of recurrent theme of asking for more significant country engagement and more financial engagement. It's not in all of the papers, but actually it's in many of them when you look at the challenges sheet. And I suspect we'll be touching upon that tomorrow and Wednesday as well, this sort of recurrent ask, if you will, for folks considering whether they can contribute more in terms of country engagement or resource type commitments. Now, my initial comment, maybe this is an issue for discussion a little bit later on in the agenda, is how would that translate into the CESC, the Clean Energy Solution Center going forward? And when you said, Ron, that you want to also use this meeting partly to explore sort of recommendations for strengthening partnerships, as is part of the purpose of today's meeting, maybe a question a little bit born out of ignorance. When you collaborate with the development agencies, with the regional organizations or global organizations, given that the CESC value proposition is fairly unique, it's not necessarily a 9-month stench. It's, hey, I need some advice. It's going to come to me in 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. It's not necessarily a very long-term tendered commitment, right? Have you been exploring whether those agencies who basically ask for that or facilitate it or mediate it, whether they would be part of the funding mechanism as well, given arguably it's also part of their remit, if you will? Maybe this is a long developed question which has found its answer a long time ago, and it's a stupid one maybe, but I think that would be important maybe also for discussing how to strengthen partnerships. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christian. And no, it's actually an excellent question. It's one, I get a workout today going back and forth. It's one that we've been working on, but and have some good examples. But still, there's a lot more potential for us to deepen our collaboration with development agencies. We'll offer some additional examples as we go forward, but just a few quick thoughts. So USAID is one development agency that is now co-funding the Solution Center, co-funding our work on gender and energy, co-funding our work in Power Africa, which is a joint program. It's not just USAID, but Sweden and others support Power Africa to enable so that USAID can access the unique expertise that sits here in the room and across our experts for responsive support, because like all development agencies, there's a long contracting process to procure experts, and then a country comes in with a request or they see a need that's outside of those contracts. So the Solution Center is a flexible mechanism that a development agency can use and also provides access to a large pool of international experts. Similarly with the Inter-American Development Bank, we have a very close working relationship with them. They haven't co-funded. It's more in-kind at this stage, but a very close operational relationship. We have a close relationship with the African Development Bank on mini grids, and there's other examples like that. But there's a lot more we can do, because I agree with you. I think there's huge potential and need there. Any reflections before we dive? We're going to dive a little more into Ask an Expert. Yeah, Christy and then Stuart.
Thanks, Ron. Just wanted to respond to you, Christian. First, I've had a chance to congratulate you in person, but not in plenary, so congratulations. Our team couldn't be more happy to have to share the responsibility of the SIM Secretariat, and we couldn't be happier in the hands between you and CC and the growing team over in Paris. And also thank you to our EC hosts. Should have said that as well, so apologies for not saying that. So this is the first time I think I've taken the floor as, you know, with a US hat on, definitely since the transition. So just a quick, brief moment on that, and I'll probably take the floor again just to talk about budgets. But I think everyone knows that the US is in a transition, but that is cause for me to say that, you know, I and my colleagues this week, and we'll hear this again tomorrow at the preparatory meeting, will be in caretaker status. We are in a transition. We do not have a secretary yet in place at the U.S. Department of Energy. Nothing has changed regarding DOE's co-leadership of 8 of the SIM initiatives. Although, like I said, we are in a transition, and we are relying on clearly our other leaders and co-leads here, like Australia and Sweden and others, the SIM Secretariat, and our partners, and of course our operating agent being NREL here with the Solution Center. But we'll be relying on our operating agents for all of the SIM initiatives this week. So just a quick brief mention of how I will operate. You know, it's not really in my nature to be quiet, as many of you know. So I will try to refrain my comments. But I will just to comment on what we've talked about in the past and reflect on your comment a little bit, Ugo. But I think you raise an interesting point on bringing in development agencies, not only for the Solution Center, but I think across the board on the SIM initiatives. One thing, we just met with SE for All recently, and we are talking about synergies between what can happen at the April SE for All forum, what can happen on the sidelines of the SIM meeting in terms of development ministries having a presence. I do think this is an interaction that, like I said, across the board, that we should look at developing. These are energy policymakers in their own right. SE for All seems to be the forum where the development ministries come when they're not annually, but when there is a forum. So I do think that's potentially a relationship that we can expand on here within the Solution Center, but also through other initiatives. I think there are other things to expand on, but just wanted to raise that one point. Thanks. Oh, I'll just pass it down, Ron.
Yeah, actually picking up on, building on that, because I remember having a conversation with Mahinda Galati, the former CFO of SE for All, and one of the issues that a lot of development banks struggle with is getting pipeline projects, and a lot of the finance work that they did was creating proper finance projects and pipeline projects. Now, they would love to go to private sector to try and guide that process, but if you get a private sector party to be involved, and that tends to be a longer term investment, they are then precluded from bidding from the work, quite rightly. But there may be a relationship and an opportunity where a project like this, maybe not as detailed, but slightly more a value or expanded project, and the guys who got the coalface experience may be able to see whether this is right or not, might actually be a value add to the development bank, so that the pipeline projects they're getting is much more well structured, that will then lead to higher success rates, all the things that we all want. So there may be a more hard-nosed conversation to be had with development banks that add value to their projects and their pipelines.
No, let me just build on that comment. I think SE4, we work through our partners. We have accelerators and other people who work on the ground with us. For example, in the Africa region, we have the Africa Development Bank, which works as one of our hubs. They work with several countries, and many of these countries, the leadership of these countries, are looking to develop several plans to transition their energy systems. The tools which we use are at least three phases. We use what we call rapid gap analysis, as well as the action agendas for the countries, and then we have investment prospectus. I think in developing all these three instruments, I think the Solution Center has been invaluable in the past, because at least giving some sort of a sanity check on the processes, as well as the actual outcome of these processes. I think it's good to have a neutral body to also reassess the instruments that have been developed. And so again, I'd like to thank you for being a partner with us, and certainly moving forward, we look forward to greater partnership. And like I said, I'm here open as a knowledge specialist to try to see where we could also leverage this knowledge platform that was developed in the past, and perhaps moving forward to help these countries make the right decisions in terms of transitioning their clean energy systems.
Thanks, Chair. Just to remind people, I'm Matuna Ngobeni from South Africa, IPP office. I mean, there are a lot of initiatives out there in terms of assisting countries and making sure that countries, they deliver on what needs to happen. But I think what is critical is to find a way of measuring our contributions. We need to be in a position to know whether what we're doing is effective on the ground. If you look at what is happening, there are a lot of initiatives, but there are limited outcomes from a project point of view. I'm in the electricity space. I would talk to electricity in particular and look at Africa where it is now in terms of building electricity infrastructure in particular, and look at the projects or the initiatives that are available on the ground with a view to support the countries to develop their own projects. The initiatives are many, but the actual projects that come to fruition, they are limited. And I ask myself why. Okay. It could be, I mean, in each and every meeting that I've been to, they talk about regulatory framework being a challenge. They talk about project bankability. The whole lot of things that get cited into meetings in terms of why projects are not materializing. We as the IPP office, I'm sure you know, we do a lot of projects in South Africa, clean energy project, if I may to be specific, but we covered other projects that are not as well falling under the clean energy category. We engaged with a couple of countries to look at, because the department asked us to assist in the region and in Africa in terms of supporting some of the countries with regards to project development per se. And we have looked at some of our neighboring countries in terms of what kind of support they're looking for. And we find that most of the time you struggle with commitment. I think we can talk about support, we can talk about the regulatory framework, but if the political commitment is not there, the project doesn't happen. It doesn't matter what you do. You can put all the good system in place, but if the political support is not there, the project doesn't happen. And secondly, I mean, sometimes you find that there's limited understanding on how a project needs to be implemented, and also there is limited understanding on how project finance, for instance, works. You will find that people, they would be pushing for certain views on what they think should happen, and there's limited trust as well. When you come and provide advice and say this is how it should be, they listen to you, and then at the end of the day, say, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think there's a whole lot of work that needs to happen to take everybody across the line in terms of understanding and also appreciation of why certain things need to be done in a particular way. Because without that understanding, people would listen to you and pretend as if they agree with what you're proposing, but not implement it. Okay? That's why we got so much project. If you were to count the number of projects that are available in Africa, there are so many. We have looked at a number of projects. We have looked at, I mean, I will quote the biggest one that we always talk about, the Grand Inga, for instance. That project, I don't know how many years old it is. Okay. South Africa will sign a treaty with them, with DRC, in terms of developing the project. But the project is moving very slowly. And my view is that it's still going to take some time. You know, maybe not in our generation, maybe in the next generation. So there are a number of things, I mean, that we need to do. I think we need to think about these things very carefully and have a proper strategy on how we're going to move everybody across, so that when you give them the advice, you know that they are along with you, they are with you in terms of what you intend to achieve. Otherwise, you'll give the advice, but it will not yield the outcome that you're looking for.
Thank you. That's extremely valuable advice, and I think a lot of experience that has generated, I think, that wisdom, and I couldn't agree with you more. We have to recognize that to be effective in working together on policies and regulations, there has to be political will and commitment and public mobilization, full stakeholder mobilization and awareness, and so we need to work on those challenges together. And I think there is a role the Solution Center has engaged, worked with a number of countries on programs on education, on clean energy technologies, on overall strategies that help generate that political will, as well as working on individual measures. So I'd like to now dive a little deeper. I'll turn the floor over to Vicky, and Vicky will also call on a few folks here to share some practical examples, and then we'll have some questions for you to get your input and advice.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, just to give you a bit of an overview of what we've been doing with our Ask an Expert service for the Clean Energy Solutions Center, which is the heart and soul of the project that we lead. Real quickly, just to let you know, to date, we have provided responses to more than 350 requests coming in from over 80 countries and territories from around the globe on a range of issues, which are listed here. And you will likely recognize a few faces on this slide, as many of them are in the room. But yeah, we've put together an outstanding team of experts on policy, program, and finance around clean energy topics that have delivered outstanding services to the requests we've received. Let's see, with that, on to the next slide, Ron. And with that, I just want to, show a few examples of some of the high impact policy requests we've received recently. And rather than me sitting here and listing them and talking a little bit about them, I thought it would be best if we could hear from folks in the room who have delivered the expert advice or have received the expert advice. So with that, first, I'd like to go on to the phone to Christina Becker-Burke, as her team has delivered both the assistance on the energy awareness campaign, which you just mentioned a little bit about, Ron, to the island of Montserrat, as well as, there's an example on the next slide. I'll let her
to Antigua and Barbuda.
Yes. Okay, Christina, could you talk a little bit about Montserrat real quickly?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So Montserrat reached out to the CIDS Lighthouse Initiative, which is led by IRENA, and in partnership with IRENA and Clean Energy Solutions Center, a request was developed and was sent to us at Meister Consultants Group. And Montserrat was looking to, in March last year, Montserrat was looking to create an action plan for energy outreach and awareness support for renewable energy and energy efficiency goals, try to gain a lot of momentum and people excited about the goals that they've set and ways in which they could each contribute to meeting them. And so we worked with their energy ministry to develop a multi-year outreach strategy with a big focus on local stakeholder engagement, and have drafted sort of series of steps that they could make and identified a series of partners they could work with too. And this is a campaign that is set to launch sometime middle of this year, most likely.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for Christina on that particular intervention we provided to Montserrat? If not, next, Toby, I'd like for you, if you don't mind, talking a little bit about the NetFit policy work you did for South Africa.
Thanks, Ron. Toby Kutsu here with E3 Analytics. Yeah, so as Vicky mentioned a number of months ago, I guess it was now in early last year, late 2015, we had a request from South Africa looking at the distributed rooftop market. There's a lot of rapid growth in some of the areas, some of the suburbs of certain cities in South Africa, particularly Johannesburg, where we're seeing very rapid sort of market-driven development of customer-sited rooftop solar. So you have a lot of that happening without really a regulatory framework to frame it and to give it, to enable the grid connection to take place in a standardized way and to allow the overall pricing framework to operate in a standardized way. So as we've seen in the last number of years, renewables are increasingly market ready. But one of the things that I learned sort of when you really look at markets like South Africa is that the market is not always renewables ready. And you have a real lack of policy framework that enables things that enables actually the financing to take place in the market to grow. And I think the net fit policy was envisioned and developed effectively as an answer to that problem, as a way to fill that gap in the overall policy landscape. So I work closely with some folks at the CSIR, it's the Council on Scientific and Industrial Research in Pretoria, and on refining the details and on essentially providing a critical review of the draft policy they had developed. And now we're sort of in the later stages of this and actually trying to get it implemented in a few cities across South Africa.
So that's sort of a quick snapshot. And I think out of the NetFit work, there's now a lot more governments that are moving in a similar direction. And this example could actually end up becoming a bit of a test case for innovation that other countries could actually draw from in the years ahead.
So I'm just going to stand up for a minute for a break to stand up. So just quickly on these other two examples, we work a lot with the ECOWAS region, and we work with our partner in the region, ECRI, the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. We've listed just a few of the things we've been working on with them. Most recently, we last year worked with them on a policy for mainstreaming gender into energy access, and I'm just proud to announce that that policy was adopted by all 15 countries, all 15 member states of ECOWAS at the ministerial level in December. Worked also with them on developing some regional renewable fuel standards for the region, some cook stove work, which Nicole here from class helped with on, and I think is still working with them on developing some standards for cook stoves. And carrying on the gender theme, we've also worked with the country of Mauritius on developing writing a chapter for their energy plan, again, focusing on gender. And then importantly, a lot of this work, we really, really rely a lot on the partners that we work with. So we've just provided a few examples of how we've delivered our work and our responses by teaming with other organizations that we partner with. So in order that we can leverage resources and expertise and deliver, a bigger punch for the dollar, so to speak. So recently we've been working with APEC in Vietnam. We worked with the Organization of American States to deliver assistance to Antigua Barbuda. And again, I'm going to turn to Christina in just a moment to talk a little bit about that. Working with the South Pacific Islands, working closely with IRENA on their Lighthouse Initiative. And then recently, Javier, I think you may be aware of this, we worked with Mexico delivering some assistance on helping structuring electricity markets that balance and align with the new energy or electricity reforms happening in Mexico. And if you'd like to talk about that a little bit, we'd welcome your remarks on your perspective of how the assistance was provided. And
I don't know if we're putting you on the spot, Javier.
And thank you. And sorry that I'm not completely aware of exactly what and how did this has connected delivery worked. What I just wanted to seize the opportunity to mention is that I think that some colleagues both in our ministry and also at CONUE, our Energy Efficiency Commission, are definitely aware of this tool. But I also wanted to offer you, and also I'm going to explore within our ministry a way in which more colleagues are developing policy in Mexico now that this support has been given regarding the structuring of electricity markets. This is fundamental right now in our country, as it's just some months really that we have a wholesale electricity market in our country, and many things are happening in Mexico. So I think that there are definitely many colleagues that will be interested to gather some knowledge and to know that this tool exists. And I think that to be completely candid, it's also on our side to be able to provide this information to other colleagues within not only our ministries, but also to other institutions in Mexico developing policy or regulations, for example, to be aware of this tool. So I'll be in contact with the social communications teams in different institutions to see how they can also get involved, not only requesting the service, but maybe also letting them know that if they're willing to have some other people to be part of as experts themselves. I know that there are a couple of people already in Mexico involved in this exercise, but in case there are other colleagues that can serve this purpose and provide assistance, we'll be glad to let them know about how it works and how they can get involved. So I'll be glad to talk about this with you after this, and also try to get other colleagues involved within our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier, and that's perfect, as we really would love to see happen. We've already had the pleasure of a couple experts from Mexico in certain areas being part of the team, but there's a lot more we can do together, and we've worked together in a few policy cases, but we'd love to get your suggestions and help in spreading the word on the availability of the Solution Center, and the same with Indonesia and all the other countries here in South Africa and elsewhere. So we look forward to that deeper discussion.
Great. And Javier, again, apologies for putting you on the spot like that, but thank you for your comments. And just real quickly, I do have two more examples we'd like to hear from, if we have time, Ron. One from Christina Becker-Burke, again from Meister Consulting Group, on the work we did in Antigua Barbuda, and also if Jennifer DeCicero is able to speak through, maybe talk a little bit about the work we've been doing with IRENA over time, including the work we did in the South Pacific Islands, helping prepare financial proposals for several different countries. And with that, Christina, can you speak quickly to Antigua Barbuda work and our partnership with how we teamed with OAS?
Sure. So the Division of Environment from Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean approached OAS, Organization of American States, and CESC with a very big request that was, you know, in one piece would have been too big for Clean Energy Solutions Center. And so Organization of American States said, well, we could break this into a couple pieces and provide funding for a portion of it, and CESC could cover other pieces. So Meister worked together on two requests in partnership with another consulting team that was hired by OAS, and worked with Antigua to help them think through how to design a fund that would link their domestic and international climate change finance to support a range of different types of climate mitigation and energy projects and programs in the country. And so the OAS consultant team helped with the design and the financing of the fund and what it could look like. And us, through Clean Energy Solutions Center funding, we reviewed three different funds and benchmarked their concepts against the others, and gave them and interviewed the three other funds and found out, you know, what are the lessons you've learned along the way, and what would you do to improve if you were to start your fund again, and use those as lessons learned to help them design their fund. The second thing that we did for them was also to design a pitch document, something that they are able to use to summarize the fund and its goals, and be able to share with donors, and be able to help attract additional international finance. And so the process worked really well, working together with OAS and their consultant team.
Thank you, Christina. That's very, very helpful, Christina. So real quickly, Jen, can you give us a little short update on the work we did in the South Pacific Islands?
Yes, and can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you well, thanks.
Great. So we did a couple of projects in the South Pacific Islands in cooperation with the Solution Center. The first is a training program that we did last February, where a core focus of the training program was on project finance. So, as you are probably aware, most projects that are developed in Pacific Islands
are developed in coordination with and support from donor funds. and traditional financing approaches are not typically pursued. So one of the areas that had been identified as a need is capacity development around project finance, basic tenets of project finance and project development. So we took a two-pronged approach to this. One, providing content and information to provide some foundation for participants on these issues. And then the second day, we actually did a practical exercise. So we created a scenario for a Pacific island, not one specifically, and split participants into two groups. So one group representing the government and the other group representing a project developer. And we brought a basic financial model that we had taught them how to use. So they were able to work with the financial model, and for each group, kind of develop their positions on the project. So from the developer side, what they needed to get kind of from the project in order to make the investment worthwhile, and the government on the other side really looking at kind of how much they were willing to pay versus kind of ideally what they wanted to pay. And then they were able to go through a negotiation process to see if they would actually move forward with the project. The exercise was incredibly valuable. It's something that we don't typically see in training programs, and we got tremendous feedback on that. And even just the act of doing a mock negotiation, the skills around negotiation were incredibly valuable.
Jennifer, thank you. So, just to summarize that we really do value these partnerships and how we're, examples of how we can push forward and deliver high impact results on requests that come through by, again, leveraging our partnerships, both through resource and expertise. Real quickly, I'm not going to spend time on these, just to give you an idea of the percentage distribution of the types of requests we receive by sector. Obviously, renewables from this chart show that more than half, 60%, come from renewable energy, 20% from energy efficiency, and then 20% from cross-cutting, where there are multiple sectors involved in one request. And again, a little distribution chart showing how we receive our requests based on region. Most of our requests, 41%, come from the LAC region, followed by 28% from Africa, 26% from Asia and Asia Pacific, and then a small percentage, 5% coming in from Middle East, North Africa, and a few European countries, mostly in Eastern Europe. So just to summarize where we are and where we'd like to go, right now I think it's been mentioned, support roughly 100 requests that come in per year. We have a stretch goal of 200 requests. We hope to meet that someday with, depending on receiving the resources we need to achieve that goal. Continuing, again, partnerships being important, continuing to develop our partnerships with agencies and programs and global organizations. Regional organizations are very important. I mentioned ECRI just a few minutes ago. And then, of course, working closely with the other SIM initiatives where we frequently overlap. And CLASS was one initiative, or the SEED initiative, that through the CLASS experts on delivering standards and labeling programs for energy efficiency. One of the things we're always seeking is to diversify our team of experts. We have over 60 experts, really quality experts right now delivering assistance, but we really like to try to focus recruiting additional experts from the regions that we work in. So those experts are not only working in that region, but also living in that region, because they'll know the specific and unique conditions of the regions we're working in. And then we're also continuing to further document and share the successes and accomplishments of the policy assistance that we've provided. And we're always seeking feedback so that, from the recipients, so that we know how we did, how can we improve, and what things might be emerging from there. So with that, I'll just pause at this slide for asking experts questions and turn it back over to Ron.
Thanks, Vicki. So as you can tell, we're really excited about this service and feel incredibly fortunate and grateful to work with world-class experts around the world and these leading organizations around the world. So we have 3 questions really for you. So what can we do to increase the impact of this service? Are there certain topics we should pay more attention to? Are there certain partnerships that we should develop in delivery, certain things that we should do to enhance outreach? And are there things, with your organization, Javier's already commented on an opportunity to work with SENER to spread the word and to identify experts from Mexico. But really keen to get your thoughts. We'll spend about 10 minutes or so on these questions, because this is the heart and soul of the Solution Center. So any advice? Please, we'll start in the back here.
Thank you very much. This is Nelson Mujaro from Mexico. We have a webinar coming up of the Solution Center with Mission Innovation on Mexico, which is on the 21st of March. And I understand that during the webinars of Mission Innovation, and there is an opportunity at the beginning to announce the services, but I would welcome for this one in particular if there are some clear message on how Mexican businesses can participate, not only policymakers. It will be a business and investor engagement type of webinar for clean energy developments in the country. So we will already be doing an outreach for this webinar in Mexico. So if there could be some key messages on how to enroll for the Mexican context, that will be very welcome on our part.
To work with you on that. That's a perfect example of how we can work together to broaden awareness and use. Stuart?
Thanks, Ron. And 10 minutes isn't necessarily long enough time to come out with lots of answers. I'm sure lots of people have got ideas. But what would be interesting in terms of the requests you're getting, you've given some examples, and also the webinars, which are the ones, where are the areas you're getting real interest, real traction, and then follow-up requests? Because I think that will help us as an advisory board better understand where the dynamic is, and then link that to where we see the evolution of the energy sector and where the challenges are, especially for governments when they're looking at where they're going to be looking at in the future to identify and give some guidance.
Thank you, Stuart. That's a great question. In fact, I might ask Hugo or David or Toby, who are here, who are working in the field, who can probably give you the best answer.
Thanks a lot, Ron. And yeah, because Factor is not only involved with Clean Energy Solutions Center, but also in other technical assistance facilities, European Commission for Sustainable Energy for All. And what is unique, as mentioned by Ron, is this can be delivered very quick. You don't have to wait, no? So this point that you are asking, these hot topics, let's call it like this, is coming from all our experience, no? You mentioned in the beginning finance, no? We are supporting a couple of sustainable finance facilities, no? Egypt, Slovakia, Peru is building now one. So which are the instruments that the government has to put, maybe a finance guarantee that will feel comfortable, the commercial banks, to provide money to these renewable energy projects, no? And for us also to do an environmental and social assessment that is very important in Latin America. When they put the money in a renewable energy project, they don't want troubles with the population, no? We work at Clean Energy Solutions Center, a couple of requests, ECOWAS and Palau, energy statistics, and we have our colleague Ms. Pecken here from IRENA. I believe is also a huge request for IRENA, no? So basically, countries, they have to double renewable energy, but they don't know the starting point. They don't have energy information. They don't have renewable energy data. How you can take an informed decision without data? A lot of gas, different methodologies. It's impossible to compare the 15 countries of the ECOWAS, and Vicky and myself, we were presenting this in the Sustainable Energy Forum in the ECOWAS. It's completely different, the statistics, impossible. And for an investment, it's the same thing. Where you go to look for a tariff, what is the electricity tariff of the country is published? Where? And is this comparable, the one from Senegal with the one from Mali? And so so it's a huge challenge on renewable energy statistics. And my colleague Toby mentioned as well distributed energy. You know, this is a business case already. It's a market already in many countries. We were supporting Peru in the Clean Energy Solution Center on how to design and implement net metering policies, because I mean they cannot stop this market anymore. So you better regulate it now. No? Very last is, and I see my colleague Benoit here, energy efficiency in buildings. So we've been involved already in a couple of green building codes, Colombia last year, Peru this year, and this is also a very hot topic. The countries are demanding how to include energy efficiency measures and renewable energy in building codes. So I will say that these are the topics that are relevant. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just to add 2 sentences to this. So Hugo mentioned a lot of the hot topic areas, of course. Yes, David Jacobs, also an expert from the Clean Energy Solution Center and from IET. So other important hot topics are, of course, electricity market design, how to integrate higher shares of variable renewable energies into electricity system. There have been quite a lot of demands. And then the classic renewable energy support mechanisms as well. A lot of focus on auction design recently, and also, as Hugo mentioned, on self-consumption regimes and net metering regimes. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, there was a request from Mauritius where they had implemented 2 pilot projects on net metering design, one for the residential sector and one for the commercial sector. The residential sector flew, the cap was reached in a couple of months' time, but then the commercial sector didn't react to the support program, so they came to the Clean Energy Solution Center and asked, okay, what is the problem with this policy here? So they sent it through the Clean Energy Solution Center to me, and I analyzed the law, and I gave them some advice on how to restructure it, because there are some, well, structural differences between the investment needs from the commercial sector and the residential sector. So that's just a good example as well in how far a very short time investment can actually make a huge difference, and in how far they can move forward the policy with just 40 hours of assistance.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Stuart, and Hugo and David. Thank you for the excellent response. I think it gives you all of us a good sense of sort of where some of the emerging needs are.
Thank you, Ron. This is Lynn Monastes from Canada. First of all, maybe a comment from our experience with Ask an Expert. Canada contributes a number of experts on the Red Screen software, which is an energy management software, which I understand is used broadly, and we invest quite a bit of expert time in this. But perhaps more a comment or a question is how we think the Ask an Expert can function in line with the campaigns, the SEM campaigns. I see some, you mentioned some intersection with some of the expertise you provide, and as well some of the campaigns. So we have in Canada experts involved in those campaigns. So I'm wondering if there's a way of finding more, some efficiencies in clarifying the structure between the campaign and the CESC. So a question maybe for thinking, and perhaps in the future to clarify that, and maybe find some synergies between the two. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. But thank you for the support also of the Red Screen experts. Have been extremely valuable to have on the team at a number of joint activities. But also, I think that's an important question. You know, for example, we have been talking with the campaign on corporate sourcing of renewables. We're working collaboratively with 21st Century Power Partnership on a paper on policies to enable corporate sourcing, and hoping then as part of the campaign that we can promote the availability of expert advice to countries on what are those policies that will enable corporate procurement So that's one campaign I know that we're developing a linkage in, but others here may have additional thoughts. I think there's probably opportunities to do the same with unadvanced cooling, and I think that's a really good challenge to us to deepen those connections. Any other comments on that or other points, Jahiza?
Thanks, Ron. Jahiza Subati, UN Environment. On the first question you have on the screen on how to increase impact, in the work we do in UN Environment, the language of delivery is extremely important. And one suggestion would be to try and broaden the base of experts who can provide assistance, for example, in Spanish or in French for Latin America and French-speaking Africa. Our own experience shows that this helps tremendously. On the way ahead and to see how to optimize impact, would you be able to tell us a bit more on what type of requests the CESC has received and was not able to respond to, setting aside those that required really deep technical assistance that the center is not designed to respond to? So maybe that could hint at where the gaps are and where areas to strengthen the response could come from. And the third point I wanted to make was, and that sort of connects to the earlier point about the links with the various other STEM initiatives, and from an environment perspective, particular interest on how it can correlate with the ones dealing with energy efficiency in various sectors, because from the pie chart we see that energy efficiency, like everything dealing with energy efficiency globally, tends to be a bit on the low side, and maybe to make a common effort as collectively various supporters of the CESC to bring that up. And we're willing as an environment to work through our regional offices to continue raising the profile and the options that the center provides to countries. Thank you.
And thank you for the really strong collaboration. Maybe we'll keep your question in mind and turn to a colleague from Indonesia.
Thank you. I do agree that language, social and also cultural, and understand about the gap is very important to succeed of the program. So I think in this area, maybe STEM can take a role in the unique, that we call a unique initiative. So maybe STEM can more focus to enhance the national and the regional expert to pursue the sustainability of this program.
Terima kasih, and we would welcome recommendations on experts from Indonesia, because I think it's an area. I'm not sure we have many experts that speak Bahasa Indonesia, and as well as other suggestions you have for experts. And then on the question that Jahiza posed as well, I mean, I would note, and I'll turn it to Vicky and others here, that there's a couple areas that the Solution Center currently doesn't provide support for. So right now, we've limited our support to requests that are designed to inform government policy, regulation, strategies, finance measures. If we get requests in from private sector companies, we're not able to respond. Now, if it's a set of companies that's working with the government on a strategy for funding, and we heard some examples, and the government validates that yes, they do want advice on financing for the projects, then we can engage. But otherwise, we're not able to respond to requests from the private sector. And secondly, from the research community, we often get requests. And again, if it's just a university or a company doing research without a connection to government policy, we're not able to respond currently. And so that could be something we could consider because our resources are limited. So far, we've decided to focus on government policy, and the SEM is really a little more focused on governments. But those are two areas that we're not able to respond to. But Vicki, you may have additional thoughts of topics and things that we're struggling to meet demand.
Actually, I wanted to, Jen DeCicero on the line wants to contribute to these questions. She has to leave soon. So, Jen, are you still there and able to provide a few thoughts?
I am. Thank you, Vicki. So on the first question with respect to increasing impact, I think there is a lot of valuable information being generated through the Ask an Expert assistance. So if there is a way of making that information more accessible, I think that would be really helpful. I think the other opportunity, and this is one, Vicki, you and I recently identified with some work you're doing with ECRI on mini grids, is there may be opportunities for greater partnerships and collaboration for organizations like IRENA with the Solution Center and others. So if there's a way of perhaps sharing requests or what activities are being developed within the kind of core group here, that we might be able to identify collaborative opportunities early on, that would be really great. And then I think the third point is that, kind of building on this discussion of in-country or in-region experts, IRENA does have a very strong and diverse network. So we would be very happy to contribute experts to build into the Solution Center network.
Thank you very much, Jen. This is Ron, and we've had a long history of collaboration with IRENA, now through the Lighthouse Initiative, prior a joint renewable energy policy advisory network, and would love to have identification of additional experts and to deepen that collaboration. I think Per had a comment, and then I think we may move on to a few capacity building questions.
Thanks, Ron. Per from Sweden. So from a government perspective, I'll comment on the first and second question. So first of all, thank you for bringing the first question to the table. I think that's very important for us to understand and to learn more about how can we actually, as a country, also support Ask an Expert assistance. So as an example, we have a discussion with SIDA, the Swedish Development Agency, which now, as part of Power Africa, are developing a program for capacity building on energy efficient appliances. And of course, I mean, they would have an interest as well to get more information from which request that comes in to see if there's something to build upon. So that's maybe a question back to solution centers to see, I mean, on the high quality request, what possibilities are there to actually build upon and mobilize other support, which others has also commented on. Just a quick comment on the second question. So how can we support with outreach? I think as a sponsoring country, we are, of course, it's all in all our interest as well to make sure that the word about the Solution Center and its services is spread. So we have, drafted a letter a little while ago that we've been in contact with Swedish embassies around the world as well to then convey to relevant ministries in those countries. We're waiting, of course, we're at the same time struggling for additional funding for the next 2 years. So we wanted to wait until we'll have that done, and then we'll send the letters.
Thank you, Aaron. I think that I really like your idea of us documenting, where have we delivered or delivering assistance where there's an opportunity for follow-on support, which is something we haven't done but can and should be, or we've done maybe not systematically. I think Christina on the phone wanted to intervene, and then I'll turn it to you, colleagues from South Africa.
Thanks, Ron. I'm going to be brief. There are two things. I think it would be absolutely great to have better documentation about these Ask an Expert deliveries. And secondly, I think it's a really good strategy to tie into existing events. And in this respect, I would like to offer MEXIREC, the Mexican International Renewable Energy Conference, that REN21 is organizing together with CENER in Mexico City from the 11th to the 13th of September as a platform to populate the Ask an Expert service, and maybe we can already announce it upfront and think about how to advertise the Ask an Expert service there. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And I also want to acknowledge the tremendous collaboration we've had with REN21 over the years, linking with the Global Status Report and the many other initiatives that REN21 has. So thank you for that, Christine.
Thank you. I think on the first, how can we further increase the impact of Ask an Expert assistance? I think we just launched last week the RISE report, the regulatory indicators for sustainable energy. I think that's, if you're not aware of it, please do go to the SE4 website, or I can probably leave that. It somehow gives a global scorecard for policymakers on several dimensions. It shows what's working, what's not working. And it can also help spark a debate in terms of investment readiness of these countries. So this is, I think, a very useful document, very useful tool that can be used as an input towards Ask an Expert assistance. The second, which talks about additional opportunities that exist and partnerships. I think we have the third SE4 forum happening in April in New York from 3 to 5. I think we're expecting to see over, 1,000 leaders from industry, government, and maybe some academia and so on. But these are the leadership levels, so 1,000 leaders, high-level participants are expected to be there. I think we met with Christine in the US and in DOE. We talked about providing a booth space to at least have this, put the word out on your initiatives and so on. In terms of how can we team with your organization to Ask an Expert, I think that's something which is ongoing. Like I mentioned earlier, we have ongoing support from your organization in terms of giving that feedback to the process which we have ongoing on the ground. I think within these three areas, I think suggestions for improvement on this service. What I can see is we need to take stock of where we are, what's working, what's not working, and how can we address questions like those which were raised by our South African expert here. In a separate, and I won't say we should solve all the problems in this meeting, but certainly it should be something that should be ongoing. Perhaps maybe having some sort of after action review process where all the stakeholders will be involved in, and perhaps maybe we could see how best we can leverage moving forward the activities and successes that you have had in the past. That's it.
Thanks, Chair. Apologize because I'm not familiar with the work and I wasn't participating in the past. So if some of my comments are sort of a bit out, you would appreciate where I'm coming from. I mean, I do support the notion that you need to have some local understanding of the area where you're providing the support, because in different countries there might be different expectations, there might be different thinking. If you provide support without context, you might provide something that they might not be looking for. If you look at, for instance, grid integration, you got to understand to a certain level, understand the country, the grid that we're talking about. and the different sources of energy that exist in that particular country, because that would have an impact on what kind of solution you should provide for your grid. If we talk about renewables into a country with 100 megawatt installed capacity, it's a very different story if you were to talk about a country with 30 gig, for instance. So I'm just making that as an example of the things that one needs to appreciate before you provide the support. And also, you may want to have a little bit of understanding in terms of what is the future thinking in that particular country, whether they are looking at expanding the network, or they're looking at providing more renewables into the system. Are they in support of renewables or not? Because sometimes these questions, they are asked with a view to try and discredit something, not necessarily with a view of building, or having more renewable energy into the system. So, but if you do have an understanding of what the background is when it comes to a specific questions, it then helps to respond in a manner that will address the actual issue, because most of the time they don't tell you what exactly the issue is. They'll just ask a question without giving more context into the question, if you understand what I mean. So I think that would help a bit. So if you got a local expert with an understanding of the issues, probably will help to bring you up to speed with what is happening in that particular country. And also, I think if we can unpack some of the projects and say these are the key areas that we would like to focus on. I'm not sure whether we have done that. That's why I'm saying some of my things might be off the mark, for instance. If we're saying we're going to look at projects in infrastructure, we're looking at water, we're looking at electricity, we're looking at, what are the areas that we're going to cover, so that even the experts that we provide, we know that they're expecting these different fields. Because I understand project might be similar, but there could be certain things that differ from one project to another. You've got to approach them in a particular way.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very critical points, and for us, that's one of the reasons it's so essential that we only work on requests when we're partnering with the government, and the government's identified a counterpart institution that knows the local context. But it's also another reason why it's so important to have experts from around the world, and we'd love to learn any recommendations you have for additional South African experts. So maybe Toby, the final word on this point, because we have a few capacity building related questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this is maybe helpful for other people in the room, it's Toby Kutsu, as well. I think when you get a request in, I think the process from the start involves a follow-up call directly with the government representative or the folks from the regulatory agency or from the institute submitting the request, in order to get precisely at that context question, so that you can understand, okay, what are the issues? It also involves some peripheral research, so looking at World Bank reports, IFC reports that have been done, some of the SE for All action agendas that have been published, getting a sense of the overall environment that this particular policy or initiative is being framed within. So I think that is exactly that's the work that falls on our shoulders, essentially, in the process of trying to adapt that request and understanding the local context. So I think it would be an unfair characterization of the Ask the Expert service of it being, recommendations just provided essentially from on high. The attempt from the very beginning is very much to work closely with the governments to help them answer that question by grasping that context from the start. So I think that's really a key. I think it's an important point, and I think that's one that the work that we do build in to the requests and the services that are provided. I just wanted to fill in that gap of before we dive on. So I'll pass the mic on and move on to just
very brief.
I think the question here is about leadership and ownership. I think that's really what the dialogue here has been. It's one thing to provide one thing provide services, nothing for it to have some level of leadership and ownership at the national level. I think doing that, I think we could come up with some, not at this meeting obviously, but at a separate meeting where we have some idea of what's learning, where we talk about learning from the outcomes of the services. We could have some sort of a standard approach to requesting services. What are the prerequisites? Are these networks requesting? Do they have legitimate authority? And so on. So I think certain things can be done to ensure that there is national leadership and ownership before they engage in this. But it's something that, like I said, can be parked and maybe discussed at a separate meeting.
Thank you, Ed. And we do have criteria, but I agree with you. I think we can elaborate a little bit on those standards. We just wanted to. We only have 5 minutes or so left, so I apologize that we've run over. This was the most important issue, so we wanted to spend time on this. But wanted to say a word or two about capacity building and then about sustainability. And unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up because there's other meetings you all need to go to. Vicki, I think you wanted to say.
Right. I do want to, there are several capacity building opportunities that we provide a lot through the web seminars we provide. As you can see, we've to date delivered more than around 225 webinars and received over 15,000 people participating in those webinars. But there's one in particular I really want to point out because we had such a huge success rate with it. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Government of Canada for providing us the in-kind support we needed from the Ret Screen team to deliver this particular training. But we were able to deliver 4 full days of training to participants from the government and the private sector, or practitioners, I should say, within ECOWAS, again, working with ECRI. 2 days were provided in French and 2 days were provided in English. And we were a little nervous about delivering such a training, such an intense training via the webinar, but the success and the feedback we received was so positive that we'd like to look at this type of format going forward. And again, thank you so much to Canada for providing those resources to us. We couldn't have been able to do that without you, so we really appreciate that. And it is, I can't believe, already 3 o'clock, so.
Too much fun. So let's see. I wanted to just go slow. Go down if it will let me. Skip all this. A lot of resources, over 5,500 resources. We're always welcome additional suggestions on resources we should highlight. We have this new finance service, and we're developing, with support from Australia, an energy water portal and information on the connections between energy and water, whether that's on water treatment issues or desal or other topics. That's an area, to get back to an earlier question of sort of growing interest. We don't have all the experts we need. And we're doing more work on energy efficiency for cities, which is another area that we need to build out our services. There's a lot of demand, a lot of potential at the subnational level. We don't have the richness of experts and connections to networks to fully respond. We are teaming, I should say, with the Building Efficiency Accelerator and SE for All, and ICLEI and others in that area. I'm going to skip these questions because we don't have time, but if you have suggestions on how we strengthen our capacity building activities, additional resources, if you're aware of workshops you're convening, others are convening, Christine Lin's already mentioned the Mexico Renewable Energy Conference, but others that we should attend. We're really excited to come to the SE for All event and appreciate your offer and collaboration there, but please let us know. And if you want to join forces with us on webinars, glad to do so. We have a lot of collaboration. We've already talked about this. Maybe one thing we didn't cover, in addition to sort of regional, we also by topic try and organize our collaboration. So on power sector transformation, we're working with 21st Century Power Partnership, ISCAN, but also the World Bank SMAP program. And same on mini grids, we're working with Global Leap and Power Africa, as well as the African Development Bank, Daniel Schroth and others there, and so forth. Growing collaboration on finance issues, including with PFAN, which I think many of you know is a very important source of assistance on finance issues. And I'll skip this. I wanted to go to the end. Just note, we haven't covered this, but there's some other really important organizations here, the CTCN, the Climate Technology Center Network, that we have a strong partnership. They offer a little more intensive assistance, and they're also not limited just to government policy. So when they get a clean energy policy request, they'll often refer to us for delivery, at least delivery of the first stage of quick response assistance. Their process is a little longer. If we get a request that requires follow-on support or that's outside of our scope, we'll refer to CTCN, so it's a nice working relationship. Starting to team more with DevCo, with GIZ, others. We haven't, Hans de Klooner has been a really strong collaborator from the beginning. We haven't really taken time to acknowledge the great work of Leonardo Energy. We've done a lot of training together, a lot of outreach, and we really appreciate your support, and also of the International Copper Association that has supported both of our activities. And whoop, time's up, right? Yeah. We had a few questions on partnerships that we'll have to defer, but tell us individually if there's other organizations that you recommend that we partner, or ways we can partner better. There were a number of suggestions, including one from Per, which I hadn't really thought about as much, but I think is key, of tell the development partners how they can carry on forward kind of from our work. We've been focusing more on outreach to the development partners of, hey, use this service, but it's also, hey, we've done X, now you can do Y and sustain it. I really like that way of thinking, but there's, I think, a lot more we can do. We do have regional leads on the Solution Center on our team, and so and they manage the relationships for each region. I'm glad to put you in touch with them, but we're really trying to organize this by region and by topic, and of course work with the other SEM initiatives. So where I wanted to get to, before we closed, is just note that for us to succeed going forward, we have to continue really to deepen our work with you, with the SEM governments. First and foremost, this is a SEM initiative, and we're really lucky to have had strong collaboration with really all the governments here in the room. We look forward to deepening that collaboration and welcome, glad to meet individually to talk about how we can do that further. But really welcome your suggestions on what is it that we can do to broaden use of the Solution Center in your country, to identify experts from your country that can be part of the Solution Center, to co-sponsor activities and become a sponsor of the Solution Center, to do joint webinars, to participate in workshops, and to work with your development agencies. So please don't hesitate to let us know. We'll be reaching out to you. And along with that, to strengthen our ties with other SEM initiatives. We already have a very close relationship, but there's more we can do there. And then here was a few sort of structural questions. We welcome your thoughts on other things we can do to raise the visibility of the Solution Center as a SEM initiative. We've been lucky. The Australian Energy Minister, the US Energy Minister, the Swedish Energy Minister have been very strong proponents of the Solution Center. I think there's more we can do, and obviously as political leaders change, important to re-energize that. But and I think as Lynn noted, there's an opportunity for us to work more closely with the campaigns. We need to figure out how to do that, and then to link more with national development priorities. Obviously that's a focus of SE for All and many of our other efforts. We need to be smarter about how we link there. So I just wanted to see if there's any quick comments on this theme of how we deepen relationships before we close. I know we're running over, so it can probably only take a couple minutes, but any thoughts here on how do we do a better job of enhancing the visibility through the SEM relationship with you as leaders of the SEM other initiatives. Any quick thoughts there? We may have exhausted. Benoit?
This is Benoit Lebeau from the IPIC Secretariat. I have a general thought on all your question and all the session. One of the main reasons why we have to bring this whether clean technology everywhere is climate change, right? We know that. But the climate change community doesn't understand that to bring clean technology, we don't need finance to subsidize this or that technology, but we need capacity building. We need the training. We need the data. We need the analysis. This is not understood. What I said is that the climate change community has not understood that we, the clean energy community, we don't need finance for subsidizing technology or demonstration project, but for the human dimension. In order to solve most of your challenge and your question, a simple proposal would be to convince the ministers at the next SEM. The minister should make a call to the climate change community and say, we can deliver the clean energy that you need, but what we need above all is just a small percent of all the climate finance that you are discussing. Climate finance, rich world, carbon tax or CO2 or auction. Developing world, there is a huge lot of money available through the Global Environment Facility and the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund is unable to spend its money on energy efficiency because there is no appetite, no demand, because concepts are too big, and they expect some proposal will come to support some technology, supporting for the technology finance. Well, we don't want that. So anyway, if we can manage to have the ministers at the next SEM make a clear call that we can deliver, but what we need is finance for capacity building, and what the Clean Energy Solution Center does is precisely that, except that with 0.01%, 0.001% of the GCF money, we would scale up all what we do by a factor 100. And this is exactly what the world needs. So let's not be shy. And that's my proposal to solve some of your questions. I'm happy to talk to any of you further because I have been pushing hard the argument, writing documents. I need some support to make the call that we, the clean energy community, we can deliver. But once again, what we need is the human support for the human dimension. Precisely what you do.
I couldn't agree more with you, Benoit, and including the fact that now is not the time for us to be shy. Now is the time for us to be clear and about what we offer and what we can do together with the right decisions. I'd like to invite Christy to say a few words about the sort of dynamics in the U.S. and some of the opportunities and needs related to that.
And I know Chaz and others who are of the seed meeting, we're delaying them, which is starting right now, but I agree with you on GCF. Let's figure out how to unlock that money together. It's difficult, right? It's not the easiest thing, but let me just put the finer point on that. So the U.S. Has funded the Solution Center since its inception to the tune of $1 to $2 million per year. While we've enjoyed support from other countries, we've been the majority funder. It's clear that the signals we're hearing from the administration are that budgets will be cut across the board for governments. So I think there's definitely cuts coming from the U.S. side. We know that our budget for our clean energy ministerial initiatives was for this year remains intact, but for next year it's cut around 70%. So those are things that happened in the last administration. And I just want to say there's no stronger call to action than I can make to say, I think we've heard how impressive of a resource this is, certainly with everything that's happened over the past couple of years in implementation. But really, the spirit of the SEM and the spirit of the Solution Center is that it's a multilateral initiative. And we have seen our partners are showing up to the table, but if I can just say we need that more than ever before, because certainly the majority funder, we're diminishing in our role. we don't know what will happen in the future, but at least we know what will happen for the next 2 years. So this year remains intact, and next year will not. So I just wanted to put, a very serious note to the end of this agenda that hopefully we can work together to overcome those budget shortfalls.
Yeah, thank you, Christy, and thank you for your leadership and dedication. I think as Christy mentioned at the outset, Christy was one of the original leaders and drivers of the Solution Center. We've benefited tremendously from your wisdom and your investment and being such a strong champion over the years. So I know we have to end. I'll just end with one slide as a sort of call to action. So help us promote the Solution Center, spread the word, let us know how we can help you spread the word, connect us with your initiatives and your experts, help us partner, identify how we can partner and deepen the relationship with development agencies, regional organizations, and others, and let us know of opportunities, building on Christy's point, to work together to support the Solution Center on an in-kind basis or direct funding basis. And thank you for your time. Sorry that we're a little rushed here. I think we're maybe a little overambitious in terms of content, but there's so many good things happening we couldn't resist, and so many people we wanted to gather. But we did cover, I think, that really the heart and soul of the Solution Center is the Ask an Expert assistance. We had a really good discussion of that. We'll send out notes from the discussion, but please don't be shy. Building on Benoit's point, let us know what we can do that's better going forward, how we can work together, how we can communicate messages together, and we're glad to meet individually. And thank you for everything. Ugo, did you have a final?
I think Dr. Benoit's comments have sparked some further comments from my side. I think education in many cases, if you're talking about capacity building and education from the human side, I think that's one dimension. It's not enough. Education is not enough. In fact, we need to be a coordinated policy approach that looks at jobs. I think jobs will certainly be a key driver for the clean energy uptake, if that's so. It should be a complete systems thinking around capacity building, not just capacity, but looking at it from perspective of capability building. That is the ability of those that actually know how to do certain things after they've been trained to actually implement their ideas in their own countries. I think that will somehow close the cycle, and I do appreciate that, and I'll take that with me, and certainly we should work together. I'll invite you to discuss for the discussions on the sidelines of this meeting. Certainly, thank you.
Close on a great example of collaborations and the focus on capacity building. So thank you all. Really appreciate the time. Excited about continuing to work together going forward. Yeah.
Happy to do that. Sorry, I was just saying, Ron and I will be around the rest of the week for the SimPrep proceedings. If anyone would like to speak to us individually, we're happy to do that. So I know I'm already meeting with a few of you soon, but.
Hello? Yeah, we'll give you 5 minutes, bio break, coffee,